Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf. For all of you who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. It's 24th of December. That means for Germany, that's Christmas. What in other parts of the world is called Christmas Eve, so the eve before Christmas. This is it, 24th of December. Anyway, it's been a hot minute. As most of you have known, because thank you for all your well wishes. I've been having an ear infection and it took a while, but I'm all better just in time for Christmas, so everything is fine. And again, thank you so much for all your comments and messages and well wishes. That I really appreciate it. Christmas spirit is for me looking ahead. Because my Christmas is really quiet. I'm not a Christmas person. I don't wear, a Christmas hat or anything. I have barely any decoration in my house. There's a couple of food things that I always do on Christmas, but for the rest, I just appreciate if I don't have to go anywhere and if I can just be, by myself and on the couch and thinking about the year that has almost gone and the year ahead. And today's video is the year ahead, so my reading plans for 2022. There are a couple of things that I will not mention or not elaborate on. You know that I read mostly female authors. I only talk about female authors on this channel. So that's not something that I need to elaborate on in terms of plans. I always try to read at least one translated work of fiction a month and one or two books by a non-white author, so an author of color, a BIPOC, however you want to, what kind of acronym you want to use. So that's just the standard things that I always do. But let's delve into the more specific plan. So there are a couple of book prizes that are always incorporated in, I don't know why I do this. It's like regulating the traffic on this intersection. Anyway, so the book prizes. First of all, of course, the BookTube prize, our very own BookTube prize. As many of you know, I'm also a judge. I have been a judge from the start. You can still sign up if you want to. I will leave a link to the website in the description. And we will start in January with the list and then in February with the octafinals. That means there are groups with 6 books and the first 3 advance. There are 3 categories this year, or next year, I should rather say 2022, fiction, non-fiction, and a new category, translated fiction. So I'll, read in whatever category Robert signs me up for. I should have mentioned Robert from Bader-Holtz is our organizer. Thank you very much, Robert, for your work in the previous years. And I hope that the judges won't cause you deadline stress next year. So that's the BookTube prize. That's what I certainly will carry on doing. Then there is the Women's Prize for Fiction. Last year, I only read the shortlist, not the long list. Traditionally, the shortlist comes out on the 8th of March, on International Women's Day. I'm not sure what I will do 2022. It will depend on the list. I had planned on reading only the shortlist because I thought that the new prize for Canadian and US fiction or books by women would already be established, and that's the Carol Shields Prize. But as far as I can see, they will not start until 2023, because I might then switch from the Women's Prize to the Carol Shields Prize, depending on the list. So we will see in March, beginning of March, what I think about the long list. Then there are always a couple of readathons that I kind of sort of participate. You know me, I don't do very well with prompts except for November, NonfictionNovember, but I do try to incorporate certain books in my reading when there is a certain readathon. So Black History Month, for instance, that's in February, AussieApril in April, Pride Month in June, Women in Translation Month in August. I have to read this from the list. LatinX Heritage Month, of course, Victober, IndigAThon, and then NonfictionNovember. So I will, depending on the mood, either just read one or two books that qualify, or I might even do more. You never know what the mood brings in 2022. Then there is the book Naturalists Book Club, run by Heidi from My Reading Life and Doris from All the Books. They started this year and they pick one book each month, nature writing. Can be fiction, can be nonfiction. It's nonfiction heavy. And thankfully, they will continue next year and they will announce all the books for the whole year. I expect either at the end of December or beginning of January, and then you can participate. And they are on Instagram. I will leave the Instagram handle below, but they also do, other prompts, or you have to take pictures. I mostly don't do that, but I will read the books. That's for sure. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I read some fascinating and fantastic books thanks to the book Naturalist Book Club, but also thanks to Heidi and Doris individually, because they really introduced me to fantastic nature writing. And the last book club, I mean, I also have a in real life book club, but that is, every 2 months, and I can't really, I don't know the dates yet, and I don't know the books, because we pick the books just each time. But there is another book club on YouTube that I always participate in, and that's Mel, run by Mel. Leave a link to her channel. I think her channel is now called Melanie Martin and not Mel's Bookland Adventures anymore. So, but she does YouTube videos, but she also runs this book club. You know that if you follow my channel, but for any length of time, you know that, because I've always participated, and that's the Read Around the World book club, which means a book from a different country each month by a female author, and Mel picks them, and she has already the first half of the year she has already picked out. So that's fantastic. I'm certainly going to do that. So that's the sort of, official readathons and book prizes and book clubs. And then I have a couple of, I have to look at my list, of course. Then I have a couple of things that I do individually, that I come up with for myself, just individually. And the first one, I love lists. So the first one is a 1001 books you have to read before you die list. This is, of course, inspired by Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, because she does that challenge. There are 3 or 4 official quote-unquote books that you can pick from, and I think she combined all 3, so she has more than 1001 books to read. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed to Sandy, please go over and check out her channel. She is such a delight to watch. But anyway, so she does that from the books you can have, and I looked at those books and then I thought, it's like 80% male authors. That's not something that interests me. And I looked for lists and couldn't find. I make my own list, I decided. Very, I think in November or something. So I came up with 1001 books written by female authors, mostly also about women. So it's fiction and nonfiction poetry combined. Fiction must be written by a woman, and preferably about a woman or some issue that concerns women. But I also included a couple of books, about general science, psychology or something written by a woman. If you are interested, it took me about, I think the better part of a month to come up with 1001 books that I feel should be on the list. So it's a very personal, very subjective list. I included books that I had already read and felt they should be on the list. And then, of course, it's about, I think, 600 and something books that I haven't read yet, which also means that there might be books on there that once I read them, I will decide, well, they really shouldn't be on the list. I mean, I can only, look at the blurb. I can look at what the book is about. I can look whether it's considered a classic or a modern classic. So that's how I came up with the books that I haven't read yet. I also tried to, my list is, of course, to a large extent Western-centric. But I did try to include books from other cultures, Indian classics, classics from the South Americas, from China, from Japan. So it's not only Western authors, but it's still a very Western list. I will leave a link to the Goodreads. I made a Goodreads shelf, 1001 Women. I will leave a link to it below so you can have a look if you are interested. So that's a new project for next year, and I will just pick books for half a year and then try to read them. So. Then the next thing that I also always do is an author spotlight. Last year, my author spotlight, or this year, my author spotlight was George Eliot. I just finished the last one that I had to read. The year before was Louisa Edric. And I talked about the possibilities for the author spotlight. Oh, and if you're not familiar, author spotlight means that I read all the fiction and sometimes also non-fiction work by a specific author in publication order within the course of the year. So I don't pick an author like Joyce Carol Oates, like with 100 and bazillion books, because I will never finish. I pick an author that is, manageable. And if you follow my channel, you might remember the discussions that I had with you, maybe Carol Shields, because she's an author that I read maybe a third of her work, and I really love a lot of what I read. And then I thought, no, I also want to combine another goal that I have for next year, which I will come to a little later, and that is, maybe do a little bit more rereading than I normally do. So I wanted to pick an author that I had read, but longer ago than Carol Shields, and that also meant something to me, not only as a reader, but as a writer. And so I picked Susan Sontag. She is an inspiration. She has been an inspiration to me always. I have these three, what I call leading ladies, who inspire me from their attitude towards life, but also their work, and that's Susan Sontag, Mary McCarthy, and Maeve Brennan. And yes, they are all white, but so am I. And I picked women that are sort of role models for me as a white woman and a white female writer. So Susan Sontag will be the author spotlight in 2022, and I will start with her first book, a novel, The Benefactor, that was published in 1963. So that's for the author spotlight. The next one is a project that I call NightWomen, and that was inspired by this book that I read together with Heidi this year, The Women I Think About at Night, Traveling Path of My Heroes by Mia Kankimäki, translated from the Finnish by Douglas Robinson. And Mia Kankimäki loves to travel. And she picked a couple of women that she really admired, and she followed their path. So she traveled where they had traveled. And she called them, Women I Think About at Night, NightWomen. And so I thought, how about for me, trying to find reading about women. I'm not a traveler, so it's probably more women in the arts or in the sciences that I'm really interested in, and I can't I don't know yet how to follow their path literally, other than, you know, continue writing, but I can read about them. So I picked books. I'm not yet done with the list, but I picked books about women that are not that well known. That is another thing. So not the huge names like, you know, Red Rosa, Rosa Luxemburg, but women that I might say, oh, that's interesting, never heard of that. And then I will read about them, and then I call this project the NightWomen. And it's also, you know, a combination with my reading about feminism, which I also will continue. I didn't mention that in the beginning of the video, but that's one of the things, like the translated work and like reading non-white authors. I will continue reading books about feminism for sure. And then I already mentioned it. I want to reread, really, I will want to put an effort into rereading. That's why it was one of the reasons to pick Susan Sontag, but I will also reread fiction. And I will pick one book each month that I will for sure reread. And if I reread more, it's even better. And for January, I already picked a book, Sylvia Townsend Warner, Lolly Willows, which was published in 1926 and which I read this year or last year. I will just go through my shelf and pick the book that speaks to me. And this book spoke to me. For some reason. So that will be the rereading fiction project. And the last thing I want to talk about is I'm always very, you know, excited, but also I have trepidations about the first book of the year. And a couple of years back, I started with graphic novels, graphic nonfiction as the first book of the year. I don't read that much graphic novels or graphic nonfiction. So last year I started with the Red Rosa, which was fantastic. And for this year I picked a new release, 2021 release, Rebecca Hall, Wake, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts. That ticks all the boxes. It's a graphic novel. Or a graphic memoir, rather, graphic nonfiction. It's by a non-white author, and it's about a certain aspect of, you know, women who have been lost to history, the hidden history of women-led slave revolts. So this will be the first book of the year, and for the rest, I really try not to carry over any books. So I try to finish everything that I am working on the 31st of December, and I'm not starting anything on the 31st if I can't finish it. So that's my reading plans for 2022. I will also make a video about how I did with the plans 2021, probably next week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, thank you all for your well wishes while I was ill. I'm looking forward to your comments as always. Tell me about your reading plans or whatever comment you want to leave. You know how much I love talking to you in the comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.